So, when I was little, I wanted to be an astronaut. I don't know why. Maybe it was the great unknown. Maybe it was my flying obsession. Probably the cool outfits. But regardless, I had my heart set on the sky. But then I grew up a little, and I realized that the sky isn't half as pretty without the tree branches to frame it or mountains to hold it. I started to spend my summer days outside, trespassing, running around to my neighbors' fields, chasing fireflies in the dusk, watching the sun pass over the world to the moon, basically learning that this earth of ours is precious. But then I grew up a little more, and I realized that there is this other world of money and corporations and fossil fuels, and that world could very easily be the doom of the earth that I love. Since the start of the industrialization in 1750s, our world has seen a number of changes, from increased acidification of our oceans to a dangerous amount of greenhouse gases in our atmosphere to the millions of tons of plastic that is choking our earth. We are continuously endangering our future as human beings on this planet. So why is nothing being done about this? Now, the major cause of all of these things is an unprecedented level of carbon dioxide. Now, here we have a graph of the history of Earth and the carbon dioxide levels that has resided on such. Since 1950, we have seen, since 1950, carbon dioxide levels have changed from 300 parts per million to an astonishing 400 parts per million. And as you can see, especially when comparing to the past 400 million years of Earth, where carbon dioxide levels had never actually surpassed 300 parts per million. This change is new, rapid, and completely new territory. So, what can be done? Well, when I was little, I thought that recycling a coloring book or planting a tree could be the ultimate solution. However, as I've grown up, I've realized that larger sacrifices will have to be made on a global scale. Things like cap and trade and regulations and carbon taxes, things to stem the production of CO2. So what exactly is stopping this from happening? Well, in a very recent interview with an former EPA lawyer, Jeffrey Fowley, Mrs. Fowley's dad, I learned about the political war zone of environmental politics. And Mr. Fowley attributed most of the political deadlock to economics. One of the prime examples that he used was the Koch brothers and their conspicuous donations to the Republican Party that has given them disproportionate influence in environmental reform and legislation. Other things include the recent Trump administration and their steps that have been all to undermine any action towards addressing climate change. The most notably would be backing out of the Paris Agreement on June 1st, 2017. Most recently would be the rollback of regulation of offshore drilling on May 3rd. Now, between his inauguration in 2016 and last Friday, or the Friday before last, there's also been the placement of controversial figures in positions of power, such as Rex Tillerson, the ExxonMobil CEO, as the Secretary of State in 2017, as well as, most recently, the former coal lobbyist, Andrew Wheeler, as head of the Environmental Protection Agency. Other things include approval of the Keystone Pipeline, which will run from Canada to the Gulf Coast of the United States, transporting crude oil. The access to sage-grouse habitats to oil and gas companies. There's been an executive order to increase logging on public land. The rescindment of the Clean Power Plan from the Obama era. Nullification of federal regulation on coal power plants in 2018. The list is endless. So, all of this is for what exactly? To climb the shaky capitalist ladder, to briefly hold a very little bit more money. Short-term thinking gains short-term rewards for very few, while simultaneously destroying the futures of everyone on this planet. When I was little, I wanted to be an astronaut. Now it's much simpler. I want to live. I want the tree branches to live and thrive, and I want there to be clean air for everyone, and this is feasible. If we push votes and legislations and people who will push for action in our government, we can make a change. The most recent political bomb, the Green New Deal, is one of the radical changes that are currently being pushed in our society. This proposes to transition the United States energy from coal and fossil fuels to completely renewable sources by 2050. And while there has been opposition brought up against this, mostly pointing towards the predicted price of such a transition, we will pay a much larger price should we not transition, not only monetarily in damages of ignoring climate change, but also in our health, our environment, and eventually the longevity of the entire human race. And all of this is terrifying and large scale, and I understand that, but you have the ability to enact change. We all do, well, mostly. Some of you are not 18 yet, but vote. When I was little, I wanted to be an astronaut. But as I've grown, I've come to realize that I cannot fly away from the Earth that we are destroying, and neither can any of you. We are all stuck in a crisis of our own making, with no getaway rocket to shoot us into the sky. Look, I want to live. And I want my friends and my family and people I don't even know to live. And I want penguins and polar bears and the little dog that lives down the street to live. This is an amazing planet, and it deserves to live. Thank you.